Good evening, it's just gone 10 p.m. My name is Toby Lapati Mesme, and this is episode 11 of MesmePolitics. We have got a few things on the show tonight. Coming up, a damning poll for Labour with good news for green liberalism in Britain, which is, I'm sure you're hearing that and going, what are you on about, Toby? I'll explain. Also, Israel, the supposed only tolerant democracy in the Middle East, attacks freedom of press explicitly by burning down a building. But first, Palestinian solidarity demos up and down the country. I had the pleasure of being at one, Leeds, Brigham. It was excellent. It was inspiring. I've got some of the audio here. So, up and down the country, in quite an unprecedented way, actually. We've seen mobilisations in solidarity with the Palestinian people up and down Britain.
Israel is a terror state. No peace. No peace. No peace.
So, very, very proud that I was able to play a small part in all that. Also, some clips. Saw a clip online. I mean, all up and down the country. Courtesy of Aaron Bastani here. This is someone referring to Keir Starmer as that little shitbag at a rally in London.
And I want to introduce you now to the next speaker. I don't think the current leader of the opposition is here. At least I haven't seen the little shitbag. Here's the real leader of the opposition, Jeremy Corbyn.
So people making their hatred for Jeremy Corbyn clear, for Keir Starmer clear, and quite rightfully so. Richard Bergen was actually at the one I was at, and yeah, I think obviously I'm not the most experienced in these things. I've not been around as long as many people who have been campaigning on these issues, and I through that, I obviously don't have that much experience. However, people who have said this has been unprecedented. The size and the scale of mobilisation in Britain in solidarity with Palestine, with the occupied people and territories, really, really good to see. Actually, really good to see, and really pleased to hear that the message is getting through. One of the most important things about mobilising in Britain is in expressing solidarity. We are putting pressure on our government, and if our government, obviously it's not going to happen, but if we can build the remove public consent for support, unconditional diplomatic support and armed support for Israel, then eventually, much like in America, if we do it here, the support goes, Israel's scuppered. So what we have to do, if you're in America, you're a comrade in America, or in Britain, we have to put pressure on our governments until it becomes politically untenable for them to continue to, at least unconditionally, support this terrorist state and the brutality it is perpetrating upon the Palestinian people. Next, Israel quite explicitly launching an armed attack on freedom of the press, a thing we really do hate to see. This is on Twitter. Israel has given a warning that it will bomb the building that houses Al Jazeera officers and other international media channels in Gaza City in 1 hour. Our colleagues have already been evacuated. Al Jazeera broadcasted live the phone call between Israeli intelligence officer and Abu Hassam, the owner of the Jalal building. The owner is telling the Israeli to give the media time to evacuate their equipment from the building. The Israeli officer said no. And now, moving forward, Al Jazeera has just live broadcast the destruction of its own media building in Gaza. Owen Jones says, Owen Jones, Guardian journalist, soft lefty, says, if journalistic solidarity means anything whatsoever, it should mean, at the bare minimum, unreservedly speaking out about Israel wiping out the building housing media organisations such as the Associated Press and Al Jazeera. What's truly disturbing here is that there will be less outrage from some British journalists who spend their time crying that they've been piled on by left-wingers on Twitter than an actual building housing media organisations being wiped off the face of the earth. So, radio silence from the British establishment on this. Indeed, some of the outlets reporting on this, even reported it as, there's been an explosion, the building's gone. They wouldn't even name Israel for doing it. Israel has literally blown up a building of journalists. Anyone, just hear those descriptions, right? How on earth can you hear that and think these people are reasonable actors? These are people with contempt for even notions of liberal democracy. They're people with notions of contempt for anything that any of us, even, the softest, most sort of flaky liberal holds dear, right? These are people who believe in an ethno-state, who believe in ethnic cleansing, who don't believe in freedom of the press, who don't believe in scrutiny, who lobby around the world to shut up anyone who dares critique their mass terrorist organisation and the misery it perpetrates on its own citizens and citizens under occupation, crucially. This is a truly sickening development, and it should, once and for all, dispel any illusions that anyone has about the motives or the ideological makeup of the Israeli state. And finally today, I want to talk to you about a poll, a really damning poll. Firstly, I'll just give you a quick look at the latest opinion poll. This isn't the main story, but Labour are down 6 points. This is one of the most favourable to Labour polls. It always has been. Labour down 6 points on 31%, so well clear of the election under Corbyn. Is about 32%. Well, not well clear, 1 point clear. Let's not exaggerate. Up 2 points for the Tories on 44%, basically where they were in the election in 2019. Lib Dems up 1 point on 8%, Greens up 3 points on 7%, SNP on 5%. This would be the worst Labour result since 1935, with Labour drifting down to 197 seats. You think that's bad? Well, Find Out Now UK and Elect Calculus have done a poll trying to assess how public opinion has shifted since 2019. And they have discovered, so when I tell you up, down, it's from the general election, a Tory majority of 122 seats, with the Tories on 386 seats, Labour on 172. Looking at this, the Greens would be up 6 points on 9%, gaining a seat, so 2 seats for the Greens, big deal. Lib Dems down 1 point on 11%, down 2 seats on 9 seats. Labour down 3 points on 2019, or the worst result ever, on 30%, losing 31 seats and putting them on 172 seats, as I say. Tories down 2 points, 43%, a net gain of 21 seats. This is what Keir Starmer is leading us towards. This is the disaster. And besides, Labour, clearly a balkanisation of Labour's vote, Labour in absolute chaos here. I think one of the most interesting things about this is Labour's vote really has split. You've got 30% going to Labour. You've got 11% and 9% going to the Lib Dems and the Greens. That's 20%. You've got 30% going for Labour. It would be much lower than that if it wasn't for first past the post, right? You've got 30% for Labour. I think it can go lower, 28, 27%. That may be as low as it can go under first past the post. They're going to keep a certain degree of their vote. If this was proportional, we'd be seeing full-on PASOKification. This result would be effective PASOKification, really. But 20% going to the Lib Dems and Greens. What we're seeing is the coalition is splitting. Now, under proportional representation, some sort of proportional system, this wouldn't matter. This election could potentially bring us a government of maybe the centre-left, where you have sort of liberal progressive parties taking some of the vote, Starmer's weird amalgamation taking some of the vote, radical left party taking some of the vote, and a centre-left coalition or opposition would coalesce together and potentially, maybe, govern, right? Like what we see in Spain. This can't happen under this system. So it's a big problem for Labour because Labour have to unite that vote. And what we're seeing here is younger voters and more liberally minded urban voters are now dispatching, and they're Labour's core, the economically precarious, rentier class. Sorry, renting class. I don't mean the people who rent out their flats. Jesus, they're not voting Labour. No, it's sort of the economically precarious, struggling to get on the housing ladder, renting. The what would be a good word for it? There was a really good word, and it played on proletariat. It was the precariat. It was something like precariat. Get what I'm trying to say? That's who we're dealing with here, right? The urban, precarious proletariat, and they're going, to the Greens and the Liberals. Now, the Greens, their commitment to progressive politics is questionable, but they're a bit flaky here or there. But we can accept that they are, I'll take that back. They are progressive, right? Whatever our disputes with them. The Lib Dems, their commitment to progressive politics is very much in dispute, right? When given the opportunity, entirely likely they'd choose to side with the Tories. That's what they were talking up in 2019. Although when push came to shove, who knows? But looking at this, looking at the way it works, to my mind, I think that, Labour has a certain amount of the vote, but they're losing. First of all, they're not gaining the sort of post-industrial working class back for cold, hard economic reasons to do with house prices. But we're also seeing, as I say, 20% going to these sort of nominally identitarian liberal progressive parties. So Labour's in big trouble because their vote is splitting, and we are seeing, as we've seen in other parts of the country, sort of the rise of green, nominally progressive liberalism, right? That's what the Lib Dems and Greens are showing, and between them, they've got 20%. 20% of the UK are voting for the Lib Dems or the Greens. Meanwhile, Labour is being run over because it's in the middle of the road. They are roadkill, politically. Big trouble. Good to see the Greens gaining an extra seat. I'd be very happy to see the Greens gain an extra seat. Caroline Lucas has been an excellent force in Parliament. So I'd love to see more of that. But yeah, that's it for me today. Thank you for joining me. I'll be back, same time, same place, tomorrow. See ya.